just try and connect back with him. But let's talk about, what the market mood is like. I mean, looking at the screen yesterday, yes, it was the Adani names which were holding up and leading the market move. But then look at the move in some of the names like Cipla, for instance. Look at the earnings reaction coming in on Bharti. And surprise, surprise, yesterday FIIs were not sellers. It was a buy figure, very minuscule, negligible, but at least the selling stalled. And that was clearly evident in the kind of names that were holding up. Look at an HDFC Bank that powered through by about 2.5%. Eternal leapt up by about almost 3% in trade. And pharma is the one. And across the board, even the healthcare names, they are the ones which are really charging ahead. Bajaj Finance, M&M, a lot of these leadership names as well came back to the fore. And it was an equally live, broader market. Yes, there were casualties like a Persistent, LTM, Keynes, which fell 22%, but a large chunk of the broader market, led by some of the Adani names, Zydus Life, Solar Industries, all of these names which were jumping up in trade, and you had a very, very strong breath at your hand. But Kunal is here in the studios. Kunal, hi, morning. The fuel price hike, could that really dampen sentiment?
Not really. I think it is, I would believe, much lower than the market expectations. On one front, and the second is the market setup has been very good. In the last 2 days, we've seen good recovery across the market breadth. Yesterday was one of the days where you saw the indices recovering very, very sharply from those intraday lows. We were at one point hanging around that 23,250 mark for the 200 mark for the index, 53,000 odd on the Bank Nifty, but we managed to recover very, very strongly. We've come back to that 23,750 mark for the index on the spot levels. And more importantly, on the Bank Nifty, we're back again to that 54,500 zone for the index. Now, the most interesting data point which transpired yesterday was on the options front. And, there was a huge amount of put writing which we've seen, for the weekly options on the index, almost to the quantum of, so the cumulative strikes for the 6 out of the money strikes for Nifty, that open interest built up is 4,000 contracts. But for the put options, it's almost 2 lakh contracts. That tells you that the market has a lot of support today on the downside.
Oh, yeah. After scaling it back all the way to 23,700, it seems like it's got further headroom to go. But Kunal, just very quickly, what would be your stock bias and what sectors do you think will show leadership today?
So, in terms of sectors, I think pharma stocks are looking strong. Telecom is something which has started to look attractive. Capital market space has been something which is looking attractive. So that's a pocket which I think one could concentrate on. 2 stocks which I would recommend as a buy. The first one is on PB Fintech. That's a chart which I think is coming back into a trendline breakout after a small downward sloping channel and inverted head and shoulder pattern. Buy with a target of 1720. Stop loss to be kept at 1655. And the second would be a buy on Vodafone Idea. The stock is into a very strong uptrend, breaking past closer to that 13 levels. Would look at a target of 13.8. Stop loss at 12.5.
Kunal, Aisha mentioned about the Adani stocks, and we've seen the rally happening in the last 2 days. If you look at the news which is coming out, which is material news which is there, where Adani, DOJ may be dropping the entire charges from a criminal prosecution, and SEC may allow a settlement coming through. And in the morning, we have a Bloomberg news which is talking about Gautam Adani and Sagar Adani agreed to pay $18 million to settle the SEC case. That takes off the entire overhang over the Adani stocks. How are the Adani stocks looking at this point in time?
They're looking very strong, Sarit, because, after quite some time, Adani Group of stocks are now behaving much stronger than the overall benchmark market. And that is something which we've not seen for the group of names in the last many, many months, because, in the last 1 or 2 years, these stocks were prone to just one way of a correction, which is one way of a price trend, which is on the correction side. But this comes as a very refreshing change. In fact, Adani Power has hit lifetime high levels of 200 plus. Adani Enterprise has recovered almost 30% from the previous lows. Adani Ports also, I think, recently managed to cross above its lifetime high levels, crossing the levels of 1700, 1750 mark. So many of the stocks are now on the path of very strong recovery. The 2-3 names which I've been highlighting consistently from the Adani Group of names, one is Adani Power, Adani Enterprise, as well as Adani Energy Solutions. I think these 3 names are looking attractive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.